G'day guys, no Duff here again, and today I'm going to share a quick routine with you that you can do at home with no equipment to help fix one of the most common injuries I see in the military, being back pain. Now, before we begin, at the time this video was recorded in this day and age, you only get one spine. So you need to look after your back regardless if you suffer pain or not. That comes with prevention, meaning utilizing proper technique when lifting loads and conducting routine recovery and prehab of the spine. If you suffer extreme back pain or are struggling to walk, I would say you've let the issue linger for far too long, and it's time for you to go see a doctor, physio or chiro and get professional help. But without further ado, let's crack back into it. Pardon the pun. When teaching new things, I implement the saying, find out the why and the how becomes easy. So as we're going through this routine, I'll be voicing over the why so you can understand the reason for doing the specific movement. Now, feel free to follow along. Up first, we have the spinal decompression drill. Find a couch or chair or something similar where you can bend at the knees to form a right angle. Make sure there's no arch in your lower back by pushing it down on the ground. I want you to think of rotating your bum upwards and forwards. And lastly, make sure your bum is as close to the object as possible. I want you to visualize having as much of your back touching the ground as possible. Once you're in that position, you should almost feel an instant soothing relief in your lower back as the blood flow increases through the vertebra. This increased blood flow helps with recovery and aids in decompressing your spine. Simply hold this position for 3 to 5 minutes and slowly come out of it. Next we have the Sphinx pose. This is similar to that ab stretch that most of you may be familiar with. However, with this we're only coming up to the elbows. Keep the elbows under the shoulders to reduce the strain on the muscles. Keep your head up so that it follows the natural curvature of the spine. This drill is similar to the last, but instead of the lumbar spine having a posterior pelvic tilt, we're stretching an anterior pelvic tilt. Once again, improving the blood flow in the surrounding vertebra. If you don't feel this easing in your lower back, come up onto your toes and lift your knees slightly off the ground. Once again, trying to push those hips into the floor. Simply hold for 3 to 5 minutes. This one is very similar to the decompression drill, just without the chair. Now that there's a little bit more blood flow in that area, we can introduce a little bit of resistance. Apply the same pose as the first exercise with maximum contact with the back on the floor, knees at 90 degrees and stacked over the top of the hips. Take really deep breaths. On your inhale, I want you to push your stomach out as much as possible while you're sucking that air in, also while keeping that back flat on the ground. And then on the exhale, really suck your guts in like you're squeezing out those last bits of air that are in your lungs, trying to be super thin. Simply do 20 of these deep breaths. The next movement in this routine is the cat-cow pose. Now moving away from the lower back, attempting to increase mobility in the middle and upper back. Remember, the head follows the spine. When you're in the cow pose, you want to aim for that arch to be coming from just above the lower part of your back. To achieve this, try digging the palms of your hands into the ground with straight arms and attempting to drag them rearwards. When in the cat pose, once again aiming for the bend to be in the middle back. To achieve this, applying the same arm tension, however, attempting to drag your hands forwards this time. Once again, keeping the head in line with the spine at all times. Perform 20 of these repetitions. The next exercise here is a glute squeeze. Sometimes lower back pain is directly linked to the tightness or deactivation of the gluteal muscles. To perform this exercise, find an object like a foam roller or just even a water bottle. Place it in between your feet and squeeze them together. You should feel the tension in your glutes as the blood rushes through them. Hold this for 10 seconds and then rest for 5 seconds and then do that 5 times through. The next glute activation exercise is simply a gluteal bridge hip thrust. Begin by laying flat on your back. Then, pushing through the heels in your feet, raise your hips up so that you have a flat line from your knees all the way to your chin. Once again, you should feel this activation in the glutes and slightly in the lower back. Perform 10 of these repetitions 3 times through. Now that we've got some activation through the posterior chain with increased blood flow, we can move on to some stretches. Like I was saying before, back pain can be directly linked to tightness or deactivation of the glutes, hamstring, or anywhere in the posterior chain. The first stretch we're going to conduct is a hamstring stretch. Sitting on the ground, attempting to reach your toes whilst keeping the knee relatively straight. Once you're comfortably holding your toes, hold your toes with both hands. If that's still too easy for you, raise your leg up on a chair and perform the same stretch. Hold this for 30 seconds each leg and conduct 2 times through. The next stretch is a quad and hip flexor stretch. Start seated on the ground, bend one leg rearwards and lay the ankle flat on the floor. Once in this position, if you're not feeling it already in the quad, Focus on pushing the hips up and forward. If you still don't feel it, move to laying on your back whilst keeping your knee on the ground. If you want to add more to this stretch, perform this lunge position with your rear leg bent on a wall or chair. Once again, hold for 30 seconds each leg and a total of 2 times through. The next stretch is for the gluteal muscles. Place the ankle of one leg over the opposite knee. Reaching through the gap, grab the knee and pull back. If you don't feel it, move the bent knee across so that the ankle moves to the outside of your body. Once again, repeat on both legs 30 seconds each side, 2 times through. The next stretch we're going to go on with is the supine stretch. Begin by laying flat on your back. Raise your knees to 90 degrees and simply twist to one side. Point to note, don't let the twist angle your spine like this. You want to keep your pelvis stacked on top to maintain the position. If you have trouble keeping a straight spine, start by lying on your side with your knees bent and then rotate until your shoulder blades are flat on the ground. Simply hold for 30 seconds on each side. The last stretch in this routine is the hip flexor stretch. Start with one knee on the ground and both legs bent at 90 degrees. Simply lunge forward, feeling the stretch in the hip flexor between the hip and the top of the leg. You should try to keep your hips level whilst pushing them forward. For some, this stretch may not feel like an ordinary stretch and may actually hurt in a weird way. This could be because your hip flexors are so tight from sitting down too much, or that you're conducting the stretch incorrectly. If it does hurt, just hold it for as long as you can to ease the tension. On the other hand, if you don't feel this stretch being activated, lift the rear knee off the ground and keep that rear leg straight. Simply hold this stretch for 30 seconds on each leg, 2 times through. And that pretty much sums up the routine, guys. If you're stretched for time, pardon the pun once again, and you can't complete this full routine, conduct every 5th exercise, being 3 in total, and move one down the list so you complete the entire routine throughout the week. I hope that these exercises can alleviate some of that back pain you may be suffering and or keep you from getting a back injury. If you found this routine helpful, let me know in the comments down below. Thanks guys, and train safe.